If you've been looking for a new or certified Toyota, come be part of the team. With inventory arriving daily, we'll help you find a vehicle that works for your lifestyle and budget. We'll continue to ensure that your next buying experience is as safe and efficient as possible. Our service center is open with easy online scheduling and a quick, clean process to get you back on the road safely. Head to teamtoyota.net and be safe, be strong, be a team. This is the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. Jim Salisbury and Corey Seidman with you. And the morning after a guy hits 3 home runs, there's probably nowhere else to start. So Brad Miller gets the spot start at first base for Rhys Hoskins on Thursday night, a rare start for Miller, especially over the last month. And he makes Joe Girardi look really smart by homering 3 times at Wrigley Field to get the Phillies out of town with the series win. And Jim, I don't know about you, but I thought this was a very, very important game for the Phillies on Thursday because after scoring 28 runs in the first 2 games of that series and putting themselves in position to finally win a road series, it would have been a major disappointment to leave Wrigley with a split.
No question. You nailed that one. I mean, coming out of there with a series win on a 4-game series, take 3 out of 4 was huge. And like you said, it would have let all the air out of the balloon. They had built this balloon with 28 runs the first 2 nights, and it would have all, seeped out had they come out of there with 2 straight losses. That was a series they needed to win, maybe even sweep, but at least win it. They did. And, if they had gotten some good defense in the first inning, game 3 behind Wheeler, they might have come out of there with a sweep. But, just a huge, huge victory for so many reasons. Victory Joe Girardi needed. A lot of his moves have, he thinks out all his moves. Preparation is not an issue with Joe Girardi. Thinking this thing through is not an issue with Joe Girardi. He lives this stuff. He has reasons for everything he does. But a lot of his moves have backfired. Well, last night he sits quite literally his 2 hottest hitters, and you're like, whoa, what's this all about? I understand days off, but only 4 games left before the break. It's kind of pedal to the metal time. Ride your hot guys, ride your main guys, and get to the break. But then you look at the splits, and lefties do so much more damage against the Cubs pitcher. Even then, you're wondering if it's worth sitting Hoskins and McCutchen when they had 14 RBIs in that series. The first 3 games of that series combined 14 RBIs. But I'll tell you what, Joe pushed all the right buttons. Brad Miller, players make managers look good. Charlie Manuel used to say that all the time. If he's the most successful manager in Phillies history, it's because he had good players. He's always tipped his hat to that group of players. And Brad Miller and Travis Jankowski had a big hit. Those 2 left-handed hitters made their boss look really good last night. So good for Joe Girardi, good for those 2 hitters. Got Hoskins and McCutchen a day off their feet, going into Fenway. 2 big right-handed hitters on a roll. One day is not going to cool them off. So they have to be going into Fenway Park tonight, with a lot of confidence, just the way they've played. And it's up to Vinny Velasquez really to keep that confidence going. 3 more games before the break. As heartening as winning a series was coming out of Wrigley, getting swept in Boston is going to be equally disheartening. So game 1 tonight is huge. Vinny needs to go out there and deliver for his ball club. Aaron Nola needs to deliver in that final game on Sunday. Fascinating pitching matchup with a resurgent Nick Pivetta on the mound for Boston. And then Matt Moore in that middle game. Who knows what you're going to get, but tell you what, it would be a great time for Vinny Velasquez, Matt Moore, and Aaron Nola all to finish the first half on a real uptick for different reasons. Vinny, because, he needs to continue to show that he can be somewhat consistent. Matt Moore needs to give them, at least some contribution here. He did against the Mets about 10 days ago. And then Aaron Nola, because he's so important to the second half and he needs to build some momentum going into it. Most of this season, he just has not been the Aaron Nola we're used to seeing. But We're down to, second half of the season here. And, I said this the other night talking with Michael and Ricky that I don't know that the Phillies are going to be aggressive buyers. The two biggest acquisitions they could make for the second half are Bryce Harper and Aaron Nola performing to their track records. Those could be the two biggest acquisitions you could make going forward here.
Well, I guess unless someone like Craig Kimbrell is available, right? I mean, a guy like Craig Kimbrell's available. Any team with even on the periphery of contending is going to be sniffing him. I mean, the Cubs have lost so many games here in the last couple of weeks, and the Phillies left town with 39 runs scored in that 4-game series, 13 home runs, and 23 extra base hits. Now they go to Boston, where, as you mentioned, Vince Velasquez pitches the first game on Friday night. Vince Velasquez, his last time out, faced the Padres, and he gave up 2 homers to Manny Machado, a 3-run shot and a 2-run shot. Other than that, he was pretty much spotless. I mean, he did give the Phillies a little bit of length. Joe Girardi left him in there to kind of wear that. And Velasquez, I know this is kind of a low bar, but he's made 11 starts since May 1st, and in 6 of the 11, he has recorded an out in the 6th inning, which is something that we had not seen him do frequently in the previous years. Coming into tonight, PointsBet has Vince Velasquez at plus 110 to pitch 4.5 innings or fewer. So it's a longer bet if you think Vince Velasquez is going to complete 5 innings. Against a lineup as difficult as the Red Sox, kind of a tall task. They've won 8 straight games at home and are 20 games over 500 to enter the series.
They've had a great year for a team that was supposed to be in transition, new front office, retrenching a little bit. They have played really well. Who knows if they'll get Sale back here in the second half. But, yeah, you're right. They can really swing it. So, Vince has his work cut out for him. I want to go back to Craig Kimbrell's name. Why not, right? You threw it out there, big boy. What a difference maker he would be. But do you really think the Phillies could be in play for him?
Well, I mean, it's just going to cost so much, right? You're probably trading. You're probably trading like the better prospects you have. And, Kimbrell's been so good this year, but it was just last year and just the season before that he struggled. So I'm just saying it because we all know what this team's biggest need would be.
A lockdown closer would be. Is he a free agent after this year?
He signed a 4-year deal when he signed with the Cubs. I believe he has 1 more year after this, but I'm checking. Keep talking.
I'll sing. Want me to sing?
Yeah.
I remember when he was that free agent, there was a lot of talk he could end up in Philadelphia. He had hung out there late into spring training. And I think he signed with the Cubs. The season had begun, and the Phillies were blowing a lot of saves. And then there was a lot of, talk about Kimbrell, but he ended up in Chicago. He didn't pitch well. He's been so up and down, but man, he's been up this year. And, the Phillies, the Cubs have lost 12 out of 13. All signs point to them being sellers. I just don't know if the Phillies are one big piece away from a big September, a big October run where you'd want to mortgage the handful of, and their system takes a lot of criticism, and rightfully so. That they don't have a very strong system, but they do have 3 or 4 guys that I'd be very, very protective of at that minor league level, and I would think those are the type of players, at least one of them, and then maybe 1 or 2, and then who knows what else, but. The Cubs would have to get something pretty nice for Craig Kimbrell, I would imagine. And I would just be protective of that if I were the Phillies for the simple reason. I don't think they're necessarily one piece away from being a championship team, but he would solve, if he's pitching the way he's pitching now, he would solve a big headache for this club.
So Kimbrell, it was a 3-year deal with a 4th-year club option. So the 3-year portion expires at the end of this season. He has a $16 million club option next year that becomes guaranteed if he finishes 55 games this season, or 110 combined in 2020 and 21. Here's a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but with the shortened season last year, guys who had clauses in their contracts like X number of games played or X number of starts or X number of games finished, does anything change with that?
I don't know. I don't know if they're prorated. I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
Well, so Kimbrell would need to finish 55 games this year in order for that club option next year at $16 million trigger, but really the way he's pitching this year, that would a team, if they trade for him, would probably want to have him in the fold for next year. But just one of the bigger names that could be out there this month, heading toward the July 30 trade deadline, especially after the Phillies just waxed the Cubs there in 4 games at Wrigley Field. Jim, the next event on the Major League Baseball calendar, the next 2 events are the All-Star Week, the All-Star break at Coors Field in Denver. But the MLB draft also takes place during All-Star Week this year, with the first round Sunday night. Charlie Manuel will represent the Phillies in that first round, making their pick. And then rounds 2 through 10 the following day, and rounds 11 through 20 on Wednesday. It's a 20-round draft. Brian Barber, the Phillies director of amateur scouting, spoke on Thursday. Did anything stick out from that press conference?
Not really. Not really. They're going to go after the player in the first round that they think is going to ultimately be the best big leaguer. And I think that's the strategy you need to take. I think that's the strategy he took last year in his first draft with big right-handed pitcher Mick Abel. And, a lot of people say, high school player 4 or 5 years away. So what? You take the guy that's going to help you the most. I don't care if he's going to take 2, 3, or 4 years or 5 years to get here. So I liked that pick last year. And who knows, then you really can't draft for need, because guys need developmental time and you need them all, right? So they have a kind of a dearth of position player prospects in their system. I don't think you can just set out and say, we're going to go for the best position player prospect because we need position player prospects. You need the guy who's going to help you win the most games in Philadelphia. Part of me would love to see them end up with another stud pitching prospect that you could maybe dream on arriving with Mick Abel in Philadelphia at some point in time. Been some focus on that kid, Andrew Painter, out of Fort Lauderdale. Philly's been connected to him for a long time. Don't know if he'll be there. Maybe he will. Another name you're hearing a lot about is a kid from York County, Pennsylvania, interesting kid named Benny Montgomery. He's a high school outfielder, UVA commit, but looks very signable. Grew up a Phillies fan, a Chase Utley fan. So he's another guy that gets mentioned a lot. But at that number 13, there's probably 6 or 7 guys that they feel pretty realistically could end up with them. And you should get a good player at that spot. I really like this scouting director, Brian Barber. He's got, I think, a great pedigree. He pitched in the big leagues. It comes after years of working for the Yankees. He was number 2 in scouting, and I think he's really got his head on straight. And probably you could make a case he's probably definitely one of the most important positions in the Phillies organization, because you're very much responsible for impacting the future, just much like Mike Arbuckle and Marty Wolliver did. Feel old, but it was probably almost a generation ago when they stocked that franchise with Cole Hamels and Ryan Madsen and Brett Myers and Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley and Ryan Howard. That's how you build a team, through good acquisitions in the draft, good international signings, and then you augment with the right free agent signing along the way. So it's Brian Barber's time to shine, him and his staff, and it starts Sunday night. A little bit of a head scratcher that MLB has taken such a marquee event and twinning it with another marquee event, the All-Star Game, the Futures Game, the Home Run Derby, all in the same 2 days. Baseball's always been really good at spreading out its news events to try to, capitalize on attention. You look at the way the Baseball Writers Association has announced the MVP, the Cy Young Managers of the Year, space it out in November, keeps the sport in visibility. But, it's back a month later this year, but everything's different with the pandemic. It's given scouts a little extra time to look at guys, an extra month. It's allowed them to clear the College World Series. So going to be a really busy week in baseball. Really curious to see who the Phillies end up with at 13. But I would remind you, it's not just the first round pick. It's not just the first round pick. We've seen it time and time again. Scott Rowland, Jimmy Rollins, Mike Schmidt, Ryan Howard, those 3 guys were all the second round picks: Schmidt, Rollins, and Howard. Ryan Howard was a 5th round pick, but Rowland, Schmidt, and Rollins were all 2nd round picks. Ryan Howard, 5th round pick. Reese Hoskins was a 5th round pick. So it's the whole draft matters. The whole thing counts, and it's it doesn't get as much exposure as the NBA or the NFL draft, but it's really important and it's really interesting. And can't wait to see where the Phillies go Sunday night with number 13, Corey.
Well, 7 years ago around this time, the Phillies drafted Nola in the first round. And he's a guy who ends his first half on Sunday with the start against the Red Sox. Pretty important one in my estimation because it's been an up and down first half for Nola, mostly down. He's had some really brilliant moments like the shutout against the Cardinals, but for the most part in this first half, he's had starts where it looks like he's poised for a really good outing and then things kind of go sideways. This week against the Cubs, he was staked to a 7-0 lead and gave up 3 runs in the third inning, ended up allowing 4 runs over 6 innings through 100 pitches. I think in a spot like that, you're probably hoping for a little better from Nola. He enters really this final start of the first half with an ERA similar to Vince Velasquez. What have you seen out of Nola lately? Did you see any reasons in Chicago that made you think that he's potentially turning a corner?
Lately, it looks like his breaking ball and his changeup have been closer to what we expect, closer to vintage Nola. He has struggled all year with just lacked that pinpoint command of his fastball, and that's been his hallmark throughout his career. Larry Anderson talks a lot about Nola getting under his fastball, and it's pitching is such kind of a fine science, but for those of you on video, here you're on top of the fastball. Look, show me my ball here. So you're on top of the fastball, and it's just that little release point. Now you're under it. So Larry notices that and believes that is some of the reasons for his lack of consistent fastball command. It has been there some nights, and when it's there, he's pretty dangerous. But when he doesn't have it, he makes mistakes over the plate. He's not 99, 98, 97. He's more like 93 to 96. And when you make a mistake over the plate, these guys will hit it. He's run some high pitch counts, and that goes back to command. Just not having that pinpoint command. Run some high pitch counts and had trouble getting through the middle innings. And we saw him a couple starts ago sitting on the bench with his head down. He looked very discouraged because nobody wants it more than Nola. Nobody works harder. Nobody's more dedicated to his craft. Nobody's a better Philly. This guy is, he's a total package, teammate, worker. And I'm sure deep down inside this season has eaten him up a little bit. That said, he's kept his head above water. For a guy who struggled like he has, he's kept his head above water. And maybe Sunday can be the start of a good run for him because this season is far from over. They are right in it. It's a flawed division. Everybody's sort of treading water, and at some point, somebody's going to start to swim here. And if the Phillies' main boys get going in the lineup and on the pitching side, it looks like that lineup's getting going. They're going to be interesting to watch down the stretch, and they're going to force management's hand to stay in this thing and go out and tinker. They need to get some bullpen help. Maybe even another starter at the back end. But still, Nola can be a huge pickup for this team, just if he pitches to his track record.
Yeah, the Phillies enter the final weekend of the first half, 4 games behind the Mets in the NL East. The Braves and Nationals both a half game behind the Phillies as we sit here on Friday. Now, Didi Gregorius came back last week after a lengthy absence with an elbow injury. He's made a pretty big impact offensively already. He's played 6 games. He has 3 homers, 2 doubles, and a single. And in those 6 games, the Phillies are 5-1. So he's fit in nicely, coming back into the lineup, providing that left-handed power stick the Phils really could have used. Defensively, kind of is what it is. He has not been as sound as Ronald Torreyes, obviously, and Joe Girardi talked about how Didi had made improvements after the first couple of weeks of the season, but still seeing kind of similar things in terms of range and bobbling balls. The throwing arm seems to be pretty strong, but it's something that the Phillies are just going to have to live with over the second half of the season and hope that the offense outweighs the defense, right?
Agree. You're going to have to out-hit a bad bullpen. You're going to have to out-hit bad defense. They're not a good defensive team. The Fangraphs rating has them second worst in baseball in defensive runs saved. And they're not going to get, measurably better, I don't think. I don't think you can just turn it around. At this point, kind of they are what they are. That said, it can be a little bit like hitting. You can go into stages where you look awful and then stages where you play better, right, or hit better. So maybe they can get on a roll here and play a little bit better defensively. Bohm has made some better plays recently. He's made some difficult plays that major league third basemen make in this series in Chicago. He's far from sound over there, but he's looking a little bit better. You mentioned the 5-1 record with Didi. I mean, the loss came down to basically he contributed in a big way with an error behind Zach Wheeler. So if they could just figure out a way to tighten it up defensively, it's going to help them. All these little things, a little bit better in the bullpen, a little bit better in defense, a little bit better in the offense, a little bit better in the rotation. Just a smidge here and there could be such a difference, and a little bit better in the front office, right? Because the front office is going to need to make a tweak here. We're going to find out what that tweak's going to be, but they're going to need to help a little bit. Maybe Joe needs to give the starters a little more leash. Wheeler the other night, taking him out with 1 out to go in the 6th, to me was a head scratcher. Sticking with Eflin Thursday night was, I thought, a good move on his part, and obviously it paid off, but it showed like he had a little more faith in this guy now. Probably that's because it was his last start before the break. He's going to get significant rest. I think all that weighs into it, but I'm just, he's in a tough. He is in a tough spot. These guys are making a big jump in innings this year. Wheeler is leading the majors in innings. Joe is right. You're going to need him in August, September, if you're going to get where you want to go, and if you can trim it back a little bit here and there, that can all help. But I don't know that you're going to get where you want to go if you don't maximize what these guys, the time the ball is in their hand, as opposed to the time that it's in the bullpen's hand. So. It's really incumbent that they got to get another reliever in here that he has some faith in, somebody that can get on a roll, so he can employ his strategy in the starting rotation, trim where he needs to, let a guy go that extra inning where he needs to. It's just such a fine mix that can stay on the rails and go off the rails, like with the simplest of occurrences. So we'll see.
Jim, do you think there's any chance that Dave Dombrowski stands pat at this trade deadline? The reason I ask is because, if the Phillies don't convince themselves or Dombrowski that they can actually contend over these next few weeks, if they don't convince them over the next few weeks, and a market doesn't materialize for players like Andrew McCutchen and Gene Segura, veterans who you're not going to get top-notch prospects for, it would seem like the worst case would be standing pat. But I could totally foresee a situation where you don't find sufficient value for those veterans and look at it and say, well, you know what, they're more valuable to us than any prospects that we deal them for at this point. But what do you think about that?
Oh, I've kind of talked about that. Ruben and I talked about that the other day. I think their best strategy, they need to make the postseason. If they don't make the postseason this year, their drought is up to 10 years, a decade. They need to have a winning season so they can have first winning season in a decade. It would be a really important step for this franchise to play in October, much like the 2007 team when they played in October, got a taste of it, and then, got better down the road. And you get to October with Wheeler, Nola, and Eflin, and just who knows, you might win a few games, right? So I think it's important to get to October, and the best route might be to stand pat. It's not always the best route every July, but it might be the best route for the 2021 Phillies. Give this team, the lineup, more time to come together, more time to get healthy, more time to perform for their track records. Don't be in a rush to throw these veterans like McCutchen and Segura out the door, because you're right there. You're 4 games out. You're a game under 500. This division is begging for one team to get hot. You have a chance it could be you. So maybe it's just with this cast of characters. So that's why all along I've said I don't think they should be aggressive buyers, because I don't want to give up anybody of any value in the minor league system for a team that I don't think is one piece away. And their best route might be to be stand pat with one or two tweaks around the edges. And that might be enough to get you to October, and might be enough to get you hot down the stretch, get to October, take a chance that you could, make a little bit of noise behind Wheeler, behind Nola, behind Eflin. That was sort of what you thought could happen way back in the winter. Maybe it still can happen because you haven't played well, but neither has the division. Somebody's going to win this division. Why not you? And if you kind of keep this thing together, that might be your best route with a tweak or two around the edges.
And that's going to do it for this Phillies Talk podcast, the final one before the All-Star break. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy the All-Star festivities. A reminder that the first round of the MLB draft is Sunday night. You can check it out on MLB Network and find all the coverage at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com.
Yeah, might have. I wonder if we're going to have two All-Star starters. DeGrom is out, so maybe Zach Wheeler is starting on the mound, and Buster Posey has been banged up. Maybe JT Realmuto sneaks in there, and you have two Phillies in the starting battery. That would be interesting to me. And Zach Wheeler, have you one inning, get your 12 pitches, and then get on your private jet and go home and have a few days off and come back ready for the second half. But thanks for being with us.
Well, the All-Star Game lineups will be out around midday Monday, so keep an eye out there to see if the Phillies do, in fact, have two starters in Zach Wheeler and JT Realmuto. Thanks for listening to the Phillies Talk podcast, everybody.